Next up is someone who has become a dear friend very quickly, and I was at a party at the Lightdow House in LA, and just heard him riffing on the need for technology rooted in wisdom. What does that even mean? And his background is obviously impressive. Former head of AI at Nike, and is doing some work outside. I mean, we could have him talk on 10 different topics. He's doing work with a incredible co-founder to treat electrons like bits and create an operating system for maximally optimized energy distribution, so that we can actually have, in their language, energy as a human right. But he's not going to talk about that at all. What he's going to talk about is a term I've never heard, but is maybe encapsulates something that certainly the intention is not only intriguing, but I think calls forth what's needed in technological development. And that's what he's building, Wisdom AI. So let's welcome Ahmer Inam.
Thank you, Elliot. Appreciate it. Wow, can't see faces from here. It's very bright. Thank you. Hi, this is Ahmer Inam, joining here from Portland, Oregon. I've been in the space of AI since late 90s, and started my journey of AI in the era of expert systems, symbolic reasoning, tapping human expertise that we were already studying that were at risk of losing over time, and being able to digitize it so that people learn from that human expertise and wisdom and then drive complex business decisions. So we went from that era of essentially in AI, which was honed in on human wisdom and expertise, high human reasoning. Not so much what we do, but why do we do what we do, establishing that. And then from the history of AI perspective, we had neural networks come through, and Silicon Valley kind of took over the entire domain of AI. And then we went in this data fetish era of AI, which is taking tremendous amount of data and just dumping it through algorithms without realizing what's happening behind the scene, and fine-tuning as much as you can and enforce some sort of a accuracy and drive decisions. And then that approach and to data fetish approach to AI has led to a lot of these addictive technologies and things like that we're seeing ramifications at societal level. Everything from a climate perspective, with the need for these massive data centers, extremely polluting. To generate 100 words in ChatGPT, it burns 3 bottles of water. Imagine that, right? So on top of that, we are also in this era of rapidly increasing what is called AI colonization. We went from an era of, and colonization, of course, have been around for throughout human history, and then we've gone from era of colonization of the borders to colonization of the resources for extraction, colonization of humans and extractions of humans. We're in this era right now of what is called AI colonization, where we are in this era of colonizing the human mindset and essentially extracting the wisdom itself. Where is this wisdom, though? Just want to kind of show the evolution. Oh, I can use my fingers. So data is essentially raw facts and transactions. It's just data. Essentially, it just doesn't tell us anything yet. When we analyze that data and shape and form it, it becomes information. And as you understand, analyze, and synthesize it, it becomes what is called the explicit knowledge. So what I was sharing about the expert system era or symbolic AI era, which is the foundation or classical era, that started on the tacit knowledge zone or from the top down here, which is a higher form of human intelligence and wisdom. In the current era, which is the data fetish era, we are kind of rolling up from here, trying to extrapolate and understand what human wisdom might be or could be, or at least mimicry of that, if I might say. So fascinating enough, current approach to large language models and everything is stuck here. And a lot of what we see is essentially replication, or many would say stochastic parrot, because they're just parroting and repeating what they're trained on. I might say it's not even intelligence. Many would say it's not even intelligence yet, just me. So where we are approaching this is an fascinating arise where we can combine explicit knowledge with tacit knowledge through a recursive process of internalization and externalization, focusing on why do we do what we do to get to that his wisdom or application of that wisdom in critical decision making where high human reasoning is involved. High human reasoning, what does that mean? It means that we as humans can take low to low set of information and based on our experiential knowledge and or our experiences or experiential intelligence, we can come to a decision that is generally right. We have not processed millions and millions of rows and columns of data to get to that, right? The other part in the AI is called the framing problem. A framing problem is we as humans can walk into a scenario. Let's say an example. Let's say there's a box or a room that has a blue ball in it and an object that is a bomb. We send the robot in there and ask it to identify the bomb, take it out, and then before it blows up. And a robot or an AI trained on tremendous amount of data will go in and try to process every possible scenarios of object identification, risk, and everything else. By the time it gets to all of these scenarios, it will be done, right? The bomb. A human can walk in, and then we have the aspect of this called framing. Framing, again, comes from the wisdom, experiential intelligence. Within that, we can frame it within the context of that and immediately identify, eliminate all the extraneous information that we do not need to utilize to make that decision and then be able to diffuse the situation. So that's the big kind of a difference in terms of the philosophical approach to AI. So what we are doing, and why I was kind of going a little bit deeper in here, is the current approach to AI, especially large language model, will not get to AGI, artificial general intelligence. Absolutely not. The approach to understanding and getting to the AGI with the benefit for all has to be rooted in human wisdom that has been cultivated for eons of human civilization, which because of AI colonization, we are at a tremendous risk of rapidly losing. What is human wisdom? How do we cultivate land? How do we raise children? How do we educate ourselves? How do we treat our health, right? Nurture and nature. That's been the hallmark and foundation of human civilization, and we are rapidly losing that. So the initiative we are essentially launching is to first and foremost collect and archive the human wisdom that we are rapidly losing. And so much of it is already lost, by the way. And what is human wisdom in this case? A recent example would be people used to eat garlic, pickled garlic early in the morning. And then again, scientific community said it's BS. And then eventually it was studied and it came out that it's actually impacts heart health and actually reduces cholesterol. Recently, just about a month ago, there's a paper came out of Germany. In Germany, it's been a practice for the longest time, so-called old wives' tale, that it's anybody who's facing arthritis and that they wrap a lettuce leaf around that joint that has inflammation, it eases the pain and inflammation. It was laughed about. And then eventually some researchers studied and they found complete full evidence that it works. That is tacit knowledge, that the wisdom that is being researched from a tacit knowledge perspective and it through the process internalization, externalization is becoming a scientific evidence-based fact. There's so many of these types of wisdom that are out there that we are rapidly losing. And then in case of, and then for sustainability and from a climate perspective, the era that we are in, we have to hone into that. It's not just, it's nature, nurture. How we live, how we grow, what we eat, how we heal, and how we build. And I'm happy to go deeper into all of those scenarios, but we're launching an initiative called GeoCortex in partnership with Greg and Florian from the Threefold, and then Sekana, and Andre, who's going to be talking about tomorrow. Our first initiative is going to be focused on early childhood development, which is starting with the interaction between a mother and a child. That relationship, how many lullabies have been lost, right? They're gone. Like, and then the impact of the lullabies between a mother and a baby, and then the impact of that on neurological development of a baby. We are losing that, right? We are like raising a generation of anxious children. How do we eliminate that? Ensuring that the mothers are become independent and then they are part of the child's journey. Ensuring that food is part of that ecosystem. Ensuring that the water is part of that ecosystem. So we're taking one slice at a time and then going into specifically capturing the human wisdom, marrying it with explicit knowledge where scientific evidence is, and implementing that in early childhood education and development. Climate resilient agriculture, especially in parts of the world where we're about to see a massive and catastrophic failure of agriculture that's going to lead to a massive scale human migration. You have about 10 years to stop it from happening, especially in Northern Africa. And then the third one is nature as healer, and then finding medicine within the nature and then making it part of this regenerative ecosystem to create a child-centric world. And without a child-centric world, which Andre will talk about tomorrow, that is the way to save the planet. So I'll pause at that.
You know, we hear about efforts to try to preserve, you know, lost languages and even practices, but to do it, to build AI around that, you know, and then to have AI not based on, you know, Western thought and large language models, but actual indigenous practices. And this is an example, like even the lettuce example. These are examples of why I think it's a useful frame. I wouldn't even say reframe, because for some it's not reframe, but a frame to see indigenous practices as technologies, right? That so that it feels like, you know, there's multi-layered benefit to what you're doing. One, there is that preservation aspect because of the continual encroachment of the West, you know, in all its various forms.
Yeah.
So many cultures and communities and practices are being lost. And then there's the preservation aspect that doesn't actually address the harm of this, you know, perpetual colonialism, but it is a way to honor and then maintain some of these like actually vital practices. And so
and I'll give thank you, and I think we're going with that. So part of our initiative, by the way, is launched as a nonprofit initiative, is to create similar to, how many of you are aware of the seed vault in Norway? Great. And you understand the reason for that. What we need is a vault, a similar living archival vault of human wisdom before it disappears. And then the monolithic approach to data and purely information, by the way, the data that is trained on is all internet, garbage, essentially. You try to do any deep thinking, deep solutioning with GPT or chat GPT, it fails after 2-3 prompts. You can't go deep. To go deep, we have to start with at the top here on the wisdom side. And I'll give you a couple of examples. It's the process of interactive approach to collecting that wisdom itself is healing. Imagine these marginalized communities that have not been touched, that are pushed to the wayside, and then they have been mocked. That what you know, what you do is, we don't believe it because we have not proven with science that what you do works. Right. So this is a colonization itself of the fact that your facts are not facts till I trust and I believe that it's your fact, right? The process itself and the healing aspect is extremely crucial, because, and then Andre will talk about it tomorrow as well, is when they work in South Africa in Daba Foundation with mothers, he said, I love his expression. He said, when these women walk in, their body language is like this. And when they walk out, it's like this, right? And I'm advising Abu Dhabi government on a similar initiative there on protecting their own culture and heritage, because that is very rapidly disappearing. The westernization is very rapidly happening, and they're losing their own identity within a 2 generation. So we designed a program right now within this wisdom mapping aspect of it, which is an interaction, a story-based interaction between a child and a grandparent. Imagine a child sitting there with a grandparent, and we're training these children to ask the questions. And what's the next question? It is based on natural intelligence, no? So it's like basically combination of natural intelligence and empathy-led approach to interacting and asking their grandparents, what was life like when you were growing? What did you eat? What did you play? What did you grow? And through that interaction, we're collecting this information, and that is going to be protected. And then additional AI can be trained on it. For example, you can create with extended reality and generative AI, like these worlds that have been lost, and that the new generations can go in, walk into it, interact with it. But beyond that, it's that connection. It's healing and that human connection, because we have this polarization that's happening cross-generational.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because otherwise I'm like, okay, well, how's it not just extractive? Because it's like, okay, we're taking your knowledge. No, but it's like, oh no, I'm some, despite what culture has, Western culture has said for centuries, what I am and have to share is of value. And so that I love that the process of engaging itself is healing, because it's honoring and recognizing that value. I wish we could go longer, but I love your work. Thank you so much for being here.